Now, the Ghana Revenue Authority has withdrawn its earlier request for back payment of taxes of about $665 million from MTN. According to MTN Ghana, this follows conclusion of discussions after the 21-day timeline for engagement on the assessments. Well, Richmond, the Frimpong financial advisory consultant, joins me from Ghana for more. Richmond, thank you so much for taking the time out to join us today. Well, the Ghana Revenue Authority has dropped, of course, this case against MTN, but I'd like you to just, for the benefit of our viewers, help us understand what the key takeaways are for you from these stories and what you make of the GRA's decision to drop the charges.
I think that largely it is just to improve on the conversations surrounding that bill that was raised against MTN. And it appears that Ghana's focus here, I'm talking about the Revenue Authority, the focus is to make sure that the conversation around the relationship between multinationals is not looking a bit hostile, particularly at this time where the economy is trying to woo a lot of foreign direct investment into the country. The conversation on MTN's bill was quite huge and significant, and it's better it is discussed behind closed doors and cleaned up other than just it being a headline conversation.
Well, thank you so much for that. But I'd like to ask you this. Now, some analysts say governments, particularly in developing countries here in Africa, particularly also, they say that these governments have conflicting objectives regarding their treatment of telcos. On the one hand, they of course, they understand the importance of telcos to socioeconomic development and growth. On the other hand, they see telcos also as a good source of revenue. And it would appear, and we know that also, that the tax burden of telcos have increased over the years. It would appear that there is some sort of a challenge for these governments in balancing, both sides. What is your take on this?
I mean, that is a very good observation, and it is right. If you look at the case of Ghana and some parts of sub-Saharan Africa, you notice that these telecom companies are changing from just telecommunication companies now into technology firms. And so as they become fintechs, their revenue tickets increase over time. And so government tries to find a way, particularly when the governments are also challenged with revenue generation, to make sure that that handle from these multinationals are bringing in a very big chunk in terms of their revenue collection. At the same time, if you look at the kind of contribution they are bringing to employment, look at the mobile money sector alone, it is quite significant, particularly for the informal sector. And so the government needs to play kind of a medium role, making sure that the benefits are both. Lastly, if you look at the capital markets, I mean, if you look at Ghana's example, MTN is one of the largest companies that is contributing to the capitalization on the market and is increasing a lot of activity. So you cannot treat it anyhow like any organization when it comes to revenue generation. You have to balance the mix.
Now, another development we're also seeing is that there's also, it's not just taxes on the telcos that's increasing, there's also taxes on consumers themselves, the usage of mobile phones. We're seeing some pushback in some African countries. What is your take on this? Is this something you see that could backfire going forward, or is this an opportunity also, revenue opportunity for the government that can be well managed if the government listens to both the telcos and the consumers?
Right. So the idea of improving revenue collection in that ecosystem is not bad. We just have to check in terms of analyzing its impact on the economy entirely. Look at the example we have had across the continent, from Zambia all the way to Mozambique to Ghana recently, and discussing the e-levy bill on how people who do mobile money transactions are supposed to pay a certain percentage as tax. Immediately they were introduced in each of these economies. You notice that the whole digitalization agenda dropped entirely because people were paying so much more than the convenience that this transaction was bringing them. And so I think the government would have to be concerned about the size in terms of broadening the base, so that even if it's a little percentage of tax, because the people participating in that ecosystem are more, it's almost like a total revenue collection. So total and the number of people involved, which is the quantity times the price, irrespective of how little the tax may be, you are able to generate more. If you don't do that and you rather increase the tax handle, then you get a lot of people pushing back finding alternative ways to escape that kind of tax or avoid it, and then the companies now become the people who lose on the other end.